Yes, please.
At what age was Hazrat Musa alayhi salam when he was told he was a prophet?
Are you fine? Musa, could you come closer? Musa alayhi salam was what?
At what age was Hazrat Musa alayhi salam when he was told he was a prophet?
He didn't think he was a prophet, he was told that he was a prophet.
That's what I said. At what age?
So generally we understand that when people reach the age of maturity, not in the sense that they become adults, but in the sense that they become mature in mind, it is then that they are given the responsibility of prophethood by Allah. Because youngish, irresponsible people cannot be given that grave responsibility. And even if they are responsible within, otherwise Allah would not make them prophets, people's attitude to them would not be the right attitude that should be towards grown-up people. So it is generally inferred, although it is not mentioned in the Holy Quran, it is generally inferred from some traditions and other mentions elsewhere that prophets are given this office at the age of 40 or thereabouts. That is the general conception, but it is not essential. Some prophets we know were made prophets earlier. For instance, Hazrat Yahya alayhi salatu wasalam was martyred when he was about 30 or 33. So he must have been made a prophet earlier than that. Similarly, Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, is known to have been crucified, though we believe he didn't die upon cross, but he was crucified at the age of 33. That being so, his inception of prophethood was much earlier, definitely, at least a few years earlier, I should say. So that is the general rule. We can't fix a definite date that must be the prerequisite for a prophet to acquire that age.
So thank you.
Who tells you these serious questions? Do you think of them yourself? Huh? Yes, very good. So you have reached an age of maturity. Any other questions, please? Yes, just a moment, I didn't know that it was you. I'm sorry. You tricked me into this permission because you changed your normal place, you know.
So I came late, that's why
I see, all right.
I was rejected by my friends.
I thought you were somebody, you know, so Yes, please.
Assalamualaikum.
Well,
So I'll read a verse which I have written down.
Could you raise the microphone to your level, please?
Yes. I'll read verse 47 of Surah Bani Israel.
Yes.
In the translation. And we put coverings over their hearts, lest they should understand it, and in their ears a deafness. And when thou makest mention in the Quran of thy Lord alone, they turn their backs in aversion. So my question is, the human being is left on his own free will in this earth. And here Allah says, He puts coverings over their hearts Himself. I mean, that is something Allah cleared up.
You know, these verses, or I should say such verses, should be understood in the light of those fundamental verses which are the governing clauses in this regard. The fundamental verse in this regard is فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ لَا إِكْرَاهَ فِي الدِّينِ. These are categorical statements of the Holy Quran. that there is no compulsion in religion whatsoever. Man sha'a falyumin wa man sha'a falyakfur. Whoever pleases, he can become a believer. Whoever so pleases, he can become an infider. It's up to him. So there are so many of these fundamental statements of the Holy Quran that such statements as you have just made must be read in the light of those statements. And these statements, such statements as you have made, you refer to, they have been mentioned elsewhere in the Holy Quran with different twists, with the result that when you bring them together, then you can begin to see the meaning involved. The fact is that people will be declared diseased or incapable of receiving message because of their inner diseases by Allah. And this act of Allah's declaration that now they have passed cure, this is mentioned in this verse. When Allah says that their hearts are closed to this, and Allah made their hearts closed, according to the idiom of the Holy Quran, it should be read, Allah declared their hearts to be closed. Allah declared their case to be irretrievably lost. So this is the declaration of Allah which is mentioned in this way, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا, which means the disease was within their heart, but it was not obvious. They were destined to die of that disease anyway. So Allah aggravated the disease. That is, caused it to be aggravated so that it could capture the whole being, and then people would know that they are diseased people. And then their fate is sealed. So because Allah is the ultimate of everything, so sometimes it refers the causative to himself. But in other verses, where as such as I have just mentioned, and many other verses, Allah explains the fact that initially and originally the people themselves are responsible, but they reach a stage where the matter is past cure, so Allah gives the declaration. After that declaration, nothing can be done. مَنْ يَهْدِهِ اللَّهُ فَلَا مُضِلَّ لَهُ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلْهُ فَلَا هَادِيَ لَهُ. This is again one of the same type of statements. That whomsoever Allah declares the rightly guided one, no one can misguide him from then on. Whomsoever Allah declares, I am translating it as declares to be misguided, from then on nobody can ever guide such a people. So ordinarily the misguided are guided, can be guided, otherwise there is no sense in sending prophets. So here you have to translate it like this. Whomsoever Allah declares to be misguided, that is, Allah considers that they have reached a stage of erroneous and mischievous behavior where they will not be guided from then on. So all these verses belong to this category.
So even if he says, I have increased their, as you just mentioned, increased their mars, even then that is still a declaration.
That is still declaration in the sense that Allah permitted that disease to take its normal course. You know, when you leave the attempt to cure and some disease is persistent, and then you leave, all right, let happen what may happen to it. That is, Allah increases the disease, that is the sense. Allah will not forcefully stop the disease from then on.
So on the other hand, when Allah says He is exalted some above others, this is the same sort of thing on the other side?
Allah exalts some above the others on meritorious grounds, on merit.
But He doesn't help Himself.
What do you mean by it?
When He says we exalt some above others,
Yes.
Again He uses we exalt.
Of course Allah exalts, because automatically you can't reach anything. You can't even get the fruit of your labor automatically. we are in a state of sleepiness. We are living as if we are dormant. We don't realize that what we believe is as automatic consequence of our labor is not automatic at all. If Allah provides the fruit of the labor, then we get the fruit. Otherwise, we won't get anything. There's so many factors involved between the labor and the ultimate ripening and gathering of the fruit, and later on benefiting from that fruit, that if a single stage is lost, your fruit is lost. So Allah sees to it that those who put in labor, their labor is rewarded, and for that maybe hundreds of thousands of factors are working which are unobserved and unseen by our eyes. So this is why the ultimate responsibility is taken by Allah. He does this and He does that. In one of the surahs, I think it is Waqia or in one of the end surahs, the Holy Quran particularly harps on this subject, that you burn the fire and you think the flame that you burn, that does this. But no, it is Allah who does it. You sow the seeds and you think that the crop that has followed it is your labor. It is not so. It is Allah who brings the crop and sees to it that ultimately it bears fruit. Now, when you read that full surah, then you begin to understand the meaning. That it is not as simple as that. You throw a seed somewhere and it would suddenly, that you consider labor. And as if the natural consequence should be that immediately that seed should increase in number. It should not be the natural consequence. The natural consequence should be that whatever you throw away is thrown away and lost. Its multiplication is a special phenomenon, is a special favor. You throw the same seed even in at a wrong time, you lose it. In the wrong atmosphere, you still lose it. In the wrong climate, in the wrong soil. And yes, you throw in everything, in every perfect condition, every suitable condition, and there is no rain from Allah. Some disease occurs for which other factors which are responsible to ward off that disease are not operated by Allah's command, and suddenly the crop is overwhelmed. So even if you go into the ecology and consider this aspect of a farmer's labor and the stages involved between that labor and the ultimate fruition of that labor, then you'll begin to understand that everything is beyond our control. Because automatically so many factors from Allah are involved and they are helping us. We believe in our blindness that, oh, you see, we did it and we got it. Once I remember, it's a very interesting incident. I remember that when Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis, the third caliph, ordered his first, what's that machine, it's, that cuts the crop and threshes it. Combine harvester. That's called a combine harvester. So when we first ordered his combine, I also ordered along with him, and our combines reached about the same time. And the crop was just ready. And both he and I had very good crops, just first class crops. And while his combine reached first, while we were examining, he also sent message to me that come and see this combine. It was, I think, a Danish or Swedish made combine. We got it from Shanwas Limited. So it was a beautiful affair and we were enjoying it. Suddenly, a cloud rose, which is a normal cloud, a column of cloud came very rapidly and it developed into a storm and it started the hailstorm started. Hails came in such size that never in my life did I see a hail that big. One of them I took home later on from my farm and weighed, and it still weighed half a pound. Many a cattle was killed. Some roofs were pierced through by the hailstorm, by the hails, and some children under the roof were killed or injured. That was the extent of damage that was done to the crops by that hailstorm. The result was that there was nothing to read. So Hazrat Mustafa Mr. Salis gave a khutbah sermon on that, and he was very happy. And we were all very happy with the grace of Allah, because we knew that it was a reminder from Allah to us that even for a fraction of a second, if Allah's grace is taken away, you can be deprived of your labor's fruit, which you consider it is your labor's fruit. Things are held in order, in balance. So many factors are working underneath, and so many angels are at work all the time to run the machinery of universe in perfect balance, and we think we have done it and we can do it. This is wrong.
Thank you.
Please. So Allah is justified when He says, I did it and I did it. Yeah? In that sense, I mean. Any other questions, please? Yes.
Assalamualaikum.
Have your parents returned?
They are leaving this Sunday.
On Sunday, this Sunday?
Yes, the day after tomorrow. Hazrat Masih Maud has written that ilham or mukashafat and those things are the ultimate spiritual reward in this life, and are of a source of great strength for the people who receive them. But at the same time, he has discouraged from wishing for it. What is the sir in it?
I don't think he has written that these are the ultimate rewards in this life. You must have misread or
Understood probably.
Construed his meaning, because what he especially lays stress upon is the ultimate is Allah's pleasure. To live under Allah's blessing and Allah's pleasure and not to do anything to offend Him, that is the paradise on earth. And if you get that, do not be over desirous of receiving wahi or ilham or dreams. If they come automatically, naturally, then of course it's an added heaven. But you should not desire, because sometimes that trial is beyond your capacity to cope with. Sometimes you, instead of benefiting from it, you fail in the trial and become proud of your piety, have misconceptions about yourself and your strength, and you begin to believe that all right, I am bigger and higher, I am receiving al-Ilam, and who is that and so on. So that arrogance, that miscalculation about oneself, that conceit, all these are signs of one's failure. So if it pleases Allah, judging according to our strength and capabilities, that you can digest that much, He may bestow that favor on you. But don't desire it, leave it to Allah. This is what Hazrat Masih Maud has written, and the reason of which I am providing you with is also given by Hazrat Masih Maud.
How else otherwise would you know that God Almighty is happy with you or your efforts?
Well, if the Holy Quran has given a very good test. It says, Raziyatan Marziya. If you are happy with your Lord, He has to be happy with you. Because there are no other way around.
Okay.
If you know it better, If you are pleased with your Lord, you will be pleased with His orders, you will live within the four walls of His pleasures. Otherwise you will not be razi with Him. So if you are happy with Him, why should Allah not be happy with you? That's automatic. And then you begin to feel it, then you enjoy it. Whatever you do for the sake of Allah, you know that there is something returning by way of Allah's favor, which you begin to feel throughout your life. So there is no reason why somebody else should tell you about it.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Yes, please.
This was while listening to your answer about the ruh, and would it mean that the process of that violent transformation from one stage to the next be painful as it is purportedly for this life?
Who told you it is painful? You have not gone through that process.
No, I think I have read either a hadith or something which
It is
talks
not
about this.
painful for the departing, higher value. The body which is left behind, it may show signs of some pain or distortions or this and that, but even if you call a pain in relation to the soul while it occupied body, of course it is felt by the soul. The pleasure which follows is out of all proportion much more, with the result that pain is not considered to be an unwelcome thing. So some sort of pain, as you are right there, is involved, is attached to the phenomenon of a new birth. Even the babies, every baby is born in pain. Both his mother and he himself goes through that ordeal of pain. Otherwise the newborn babies would not cry. Sometimes they do not survive that trial, it is so difficult for them. Yet the newborn babies, even if they feel, they don't remember it. And the mothers remember it, but in the diminishing order. With the passage of time, that begins to appear very small and ordinary and something left in the past. But the pleasure of having a child is far greater. So the soul, which would be like a baby, if she passes through that phase of pain, I believe like a child, she would not remember it, she wouldn't consider it any significant thing. But the previous stage may go through some throes of pain or torture, but compared to the gain, it would be just nothing.
Because the question I had formulated is answered, so I wouldn't ask, but it's about the holy verse in Surah Zumar, where the process of dying and
To describe, yes,
compared with the process of sleeping, because Allah Ta'ala says, Allahu yutawaffal anfusa hina mauteha wallati lam tamut fi manameha fayumsiku allati qaza alayha al-mauta wa yursilu al-ukhra ila ajalin musamma inna fi zalika laayatin liqawmin yatafakkarun. So if you don't feel any pain during sleeping, and the process is somewhat comparable.
No, but you see, the question of pain as raised by you was accepted by me because in most cases we observe some involvement of pain in that process. But I shouldn't have accepted your statement in toto, because in so many cases of this transformation, that is from life to apparent death or a new life, no pain is involved at all, either for the body or for the soul, because sometimes the process is so quick that our apparatus for feeling pain is not activated in that short time. If you sever your finger, or somebody severs, I should say, his finger, rapidly, in that instant he wouldn't feel anything. The pain may follow later, but if the whole body is severed into two, there will be nobody left to feel the pain later on.
That's true.
So again, there some people die in sleep. Some people reach ripe old age and die very quietly in bed. And some people have been noticed to be talking and the next moment they are not there. So to say that necessarily the phenomena of pain is involved is not correct. But it may be involved. So you should read my discussion in the light of this statement that if it is involved, it would have that sort of application. Otherwise, it may not be involved at all. Yes?
Assalamu alaikum. So in the Surah Al-Falaq, the verse وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ, seek protection against darkness of moon when it is eclipsed. And what is the significance of moon eclipse?
On this I have already given a verse during the last Ramadan and the Ramadan prior to that, and it occupied about half an hour or more on this particular subject. So you can go through that cassette. The translation moon is not correct. Moon may be described as Ghasiq, but Ghasiq doesn't mean moon. Ghasiq is something which has that phenomenon under which moon also falls. It has a general description which also befits moon partly. So some translators translated it as moon. But Ghasiq doesn't mean moon. Ghasiq means something which may come at night in the darkness, and may also mean exactly the opposite of moon. Something which is growing in darkness. It's increasing in darkness. That is also Ghasiq. And truly speaking, the first meaning should be this. Ghasaq means when it has increased in darkness. At that stage, something is about to happen. When the night has deepened, then we begin to hope for the morning. You know, that sort of thing. So, Ghasiq in Ghasaq may also mean this, where in this connotation, moon will not be one of the meanings of Ghasiq. But when you consider Ghasiq as night, when night comes and the phenomenon attendant upon nights begin to unfold, then because moon is also one of those phenomena we observe, we can say that this is also moon. So it can be translated, I don't deny that, but it is not the right or direct translation of Ghasiq. This. Yes, please.
I wrote that question, it's not a question, but the previous question by Dr. Saab, that when you know God is pleased or not. When I read in the Quran,
when we know
whether God is pleased with us or not.
How to find out?
How to find out?
Yes, right.
So when I read Quran Sharif, and whenever it comes radiyallahu anhu wa ridwanhu,
yes,
I just pause and then say, "Oh my Lord, I am well pleased with you. Now you be kindly get pleased with me." Because
Allah has also shown you some signs of His pleasure with you, hasn't He?
MashaAllah, so many times.
Yes, I know.
Yes. MashaAllah.
You know, you remember when you told me that dream,
yes,
to put you off marriage.
That's right, yes, sir. But that was a great,
So I told you this.
that was a great great.
No, I told you there and then that it's a sure sign of Allah's pleasure with you.
MashaAllah.
Because I have seen some old men
Yes.
yearning for marriage and Allah would not care.
Love it.
You know, let them do it. But when he seriously undertook this and was about to get married, really, Allah stopped him positively in his dream. I said, no more of this now. I think it's a sign of Allah's pleasure.
That shows that if God hadn't stopped me, I would have jumped into the ditch actually.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, yes. That's it. You know, otherwise, ordinary old men who have no real correct relationship with Allah may see a different type of dream. But because there was a very special significance in that, I don't want to relate the whole thing. Not only he, but another party's future was involved in a very special way. And I was so happy that Allah guided him so correctly and so clearly of that. Yes, please. You want to be guided off or into it? I'm asking you, Rashid Yad Saab.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. मैं कहीं धक्के तो ना दिया
I may not trample by.
You heard that joke about one's praying for money? No? Oh, that's a joke. Unfortunately, it can't be rightly translated by me into English. I don't have adequate knowledge of English to correctly translate it so that its value as a joke is retained in English as well. So if the English speaking gentlemen permit me, I would relate that in Punjabi, the last bit at least. Somebody, was a poor man and he asked somebody to help him with money or something. He said, why don't you ask Allah? He said, I have never prayed. He said, well, try this time. So he bought a prayer cloth, a new prayer cloth, and did his ablution and started praying, particularly for the purpose of begging money from Allah. So unfortunately for him, it so happened that at that right at the moment when he was about to think that, perhaps I'll extend my hand and the money would be, the earthquake occurred. And he fell backwards. And there and then he said, "Paise nahi de raha, takle ko dena hai." You don't want to give me money, why do you throw me away?
No, good, in this
Why
case,
did you give him dhakkas? He didn't.
no, in this case,
Even asked you for money, Poor man was sitting quietly and you just pushed him.
Azur, I clear my position. What happened when speaking, I might go back or this side, so I wanted him to just leave little space for me so that I may not trample his hand or something like that.
Yes, but you did it
Good intention, Azur.
rather strongly. Anyway, okay, please.
Surah Baqarah, verse 283 tells us that when we take a loan, one from another, for a term we must write it down except when it is a transaction on the spot. When goods and money...
Why don't you read the verse?
Yes, sir.
The verse which was...
I got the
Please
Quran.
read the verse because this sort of loose translation is not the right way to go about it. Faktubuhu, these are the words, but I don't remember the full verse.
Yes. Can you read the English translation?
Okay, yes.
O ye who believe, when you borrow one from another for a fixed period, then write it down and let a scribe write it in your presence faithfully. And no scribe should refuse to write, because Allah has taught him. So let him write, and let him who incurs the liability dictate. And he should fear Allah, his Lord, and not diminish
That
any...
will suffice, yes? Yes. Now what is the question?
Huzur's guidance is requested in the light of the above surah in respect of the following situations and other similar instances. This is a common practice
Interesting, yes.
that friends and colleagues borrow small sums from one another, payable later, and no written documents are exchanged. Number 2, people traveling together, relatives and friends, pay petty expenses to be shared later, contribute as and when required, and no writing is done at the time of payment. The whole transactions are done verbally. Third, I've quoted 3 instances.
Yes, please go ahead, yes.
This is common among the ladies, that they join together, each contributing a fixed sum for a period, and the total sum collected each period is received by each by their turn agreed in the beginning of the system. To my knowledge, no receipts are issued while receiving or giving. This is the common practice.
So what do you want to change it?
This is
I mean, when you go out for a picnic or something, and somebody buys you an ice cream or something, you know, or fish and chips, would you go immediately into writing, remember? Yet, the person who sells that to you does it. So this verse mainly applies to business affairs. And we should extend it to these regions of ordinary social behavior, day-to-day life. This verse doesn't apply these day-to-day ordinary commonplace experiences. But it applies to business transactions. And there everybody must do it. If he does not, then the consequences would not be Allah's wrath, because this verse does not belong to that category where Allah wants you to do something. If you do not do, then you will incur punishment of Allah. This verse belongs to a category where it's an advice for keeping our economic order healthy. And if we ignore this advice, then by the natural economic laws or social moral laws, we will be automatically punished. So when these transactions have a serious nature and you don't commit them to writing, then generally it happens that the differences appear and laws, sometimes they take the shape of lawsuits and quarrels, and sometimes even end up into murders. So these are the punishments of natural laws of Allah. So when you don't do it in ordinary life, number one, don't consider that you are violating the laws of God, and it's a sin, because this verse should not be meant to be a religious obligation to the extent that Allah would not be pleased or Allah would punish you if you don't do it. It's a strong economic advice and a strong social advice as well. If you ignore this advice, you will be punished by the economic and social laws of God. This is why most of the quarrels which are reported to us, even between an Ahmadi and an Ahmadi, revolve around these neglects. Contracts are made verbally and they are not put to writing, they are not signed. And imagine the beauty of the Holy Quran that 1400 years ago, when writing was a rare art with the people, particularly with the people of Arabia, the common law was ignorance, total ignorance of the art of writing. They were illiterate people. And to make it binding upon them at that time, to commit these things to writing is a very rare thing. No religious book could ever have thought of it, but the Holy Quran has done it. So this is the beauty of the teaching, and it also emphasizes the fact that when the age arrives, when everybody would be able to read and write, if you still ignore this, then you will be punished in the sense I have described. And because even in Ahmadiyya community, people are not paying proper attention to such orders, they suffer as a consequence. They say, I said that, somebody says, I said that, and the other one says, no, you said that in that meaning, not in this meaning, and so on and so forth. Unnecessary quarrel is prolonged and the whole atmosphere of the society is tarnished and destroyed. So this verse should be followed to the maximum in all serious transactions, not in ordinary transactions like you have quoted. Yes, please. After this, Rashid Sahib, and that will be the last. Yes, please.
So, according to Quran, the Jews and Christians are the people of the book, Ahl Kitab. But this is on the basis of the Shariat or the book they got. But Quran obviously doesn't talk about many other books, which obviously all nations were given some kind of Shariat to follow. And if despite the fact that present Bible is not authentic by any stretch of imagination, we still consider them as Ahl Kitab.
Right.
How about considering other people?
Yes.
They should all be considered.
Of course, there would be so many. I believe the followers of Confucius are Ahl Kitab, and many scholars has mentioned that Hindus also are Ahl Kitab because they were given a book and they have the book still present, though distorted, very much out of shape, but still they have a book. So the term Ahl Kitab should be referred to all religions who claim that originally they were shown the path by Allah Himself and they were guided by divine guidance. And if they had a written record, which they can still maintain, then they can be categorized as Ahl Kitab. But those on the other hand, which don't even claim that, which have no written record of any sort, they can't be called Ahl Kitab. For instance, many African tribes or some Aborigines or some others as well, there are many in Far East or some in Africa and Canada and South America and so on. So, of which we have no authentic evidence that they were ever given a book, or even they don't claim that. So they won't be called Ahl Kitab.
So can I take liberty, because this is probably my last chance to ask the questions in the near future, is that in Surah Al Imran, where Allah Ta'ala gives the details about the birth of Hazrat Yahya. The prayer is mentioned of Hazrat Zakaria after seeing Mary,
Yes.
and he prays to Allah that he may be given a zuriyat. The word zuriyat is used there. And when Allah Ta'ala gives him the glad tidings, in the next verse it is mentioned that he was surprised. How could he have a son when his wife is barren and he is so old? Which seems contradictory if we mean the zuriyat, which is translated as offspring.
The word zurriyat is used there,
Yeah.
in that prayer.
Right.
Let me just a moment.
I can read it and make sure that.
No. Surah Maryam, in the first verse, a few verses of Surah Maryam, this is mentioned.
Ali Imran also mentioned.
Is Nadar Rabbahu, and Al Imran also it's mentioned. Is Nadar Rabbahu Nidan Khafiya.
Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Says,
आपको याद है ना? No, not that one. Not the other one. Is Nadar Rabbahu Nidan Khafiya. وقال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا. After that, what is it? ولم أكن
وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي
آخر yes.
لي من لدنك وليا.
Waliya, Zurriyat is not used, the word wali is used.
That's in Surah Maryam, but in Surah Al Imran.
There the word Zurriyat is used, I see. So he is referring to that verse.
Yes,
Fine. Please read the exact
Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim.
text.
हुनालिका दआ ज़करिया रब्बहु क़ाला रब्बे हबली मिन लदुनका ज़ुर्रियतन तय्यबतन
Yes, that's right. Zurriyatan Tayyiba. These are the words, correct.
इन्नका समीउ दुआ फनादतुल मलाइकतु व हुवा क़ाइमुन युसल्ली फ़िल मिहराब अन्नल्लाह युबश्शिरुका बियाह्या मुसद्दिक़न बिकलिमतिन मिनल्लाहि व सय्यदन व हसूरन व नबिय्यन मिनस्सालिहीन क़ाल रब्बे अन्ना यकूनु ली ग़ुलामुन व क़द बलगनी अल-किबरु व इम्राअती आक़िरुन क़ाल कज़ालिका अल्लाहु यफ़अलु मा यशा. So this seems sort of confusing that after he is praying for a son, Zuriyat translated here as offspring, and when he's given the glad tidings, he is showing his surprise again that how can I have the son when his prayer is answered.
No, this is, the word surprise can be understood variously. Sometimes when you are told something which is very pleasant to you and you also believe that it would be so, yet you say, all right, is that going to happen to me? Would that be? There is nature. Acha, as you say it in Urdu, or well, will it be, or that sort of expression or other expressions equivalent to this acha are used in every language. So that does not mean that you do not believe in the statement. It only means that you are very happily surprised. And it's an expression of gratitude instead, and thankfulness and enjoyment. So here it is used in that context. It does not mean either here or in the place where Hazrat Ibrahim's wife Sarah showed this surprise and said that, well, I'm an old woman, how could it be? That doesn't mean that they disbelieve the word of God at all.
Not disbelieving, but showing the.
No,
we would know that he is old.
Surprise, as I have mentioned,
Okay.
it's psychological. Human psychology is at work normally in every such situation, whether he be a pious man or an impious man. These are the psychological expressions of man in such occasions. So it only should be meant to understand. You should understand them to mean that he was very happily surprised.
Okay.
That is exactly what the Holy Quran wants to state.
Zuriyatan doesn't mean a heir, it just means an offspring, a son.
Zurriya may mean many things, and this also is the meaning.
Okay.
Zurriya is generally offspring or generation as well.
Exact.
You know, a single offspring can also be referred to as under the word Zurriya. And a full generation can also be expressed with the word Zurriya, if that is what you want to understand.
Yeah, I understood it that way because when he saw Hazrat Maryam being blessed so much that whenever he would go to visit her, he would find her all these different things. So he naturally got the desire that he should have some of his progeny or from his followers, maybe somebody who would get
No,
on.
but the things which you have missed to notice, the common factor about both, that neither do we find the children of Hazrat Yahya nor of Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam.
Right.
You see? It's very interesting. As I understand this, that was the end of the line of Hazrat Ishaq. No, and this was practically exhibited to them, that you have come to an end, and from now on the line would be changed to the children of Ismail, no longer the favors of Allah will remain with you. Now, to soften this shock, this method was adopted by God. The end line, before it came to an end, their parents were shown these signs of Zurriya so that they were satisfied. But before they knew that they would be martyred or they would end up without any generation behind, they had themselves died in satisfaction. As far as they were concerned, they had the Zurriya behind them. But Allah's will was also carried out, and it is in a way tragic, but in another way it is compassion of Allah which is exhibited. It had to be like that. It was a fate which had to be accomplished because much higher things were at stake. A definite message was to be given to that generation, but that's all, enough. We have tried you and ultimately you have failed, and we are shifting the blessing from you to the other promised son. So this is why physically also they were shown these signs. Yes, please.
Hazur, regarding that incident, as we said,
By the way, you know, I was not looking at you when I said, okay, come. Your turn is over.
Hazur, I wanted,
Rashid Sahib's turn. You are.
Hazur, I want to say only.
Huh?
No, Hazur, I'm not asking a question. I want to clear one little point, Hazur, if Hazur permits. Hazur, as these tapes go, all those who are present here, they know Hazur was unhappy and saying something I was pushing, but as these tapes go out, and somebody may say that Hazur has said that I was pushing somebody.
But you were pushing somebody.
I asked Hazur,
Sit down.
remove this misunderstanding.
What do you care for those who don't know you anyway? All you care is for the present company. The London Jamaat knows you too well to be, to misunderstand anything about you. That should suffice, shouldn't it? Now, Rashid Sahib, at last. Beg your pardon?
If it's too late, I will leave till tomorrow. I have more time.
I know you're very generous, please. But have a question asked, otherwise this majlis will not be complete without you.
I was thinking, sir, I will have more time then. Anyway, Hazur, there are some conditions before the performance of Hajj or Umrah. What will be the position of a gentleman, Muslim gentleman, who has a lot of business loan? Could he go for Hajj or Umrah or not? Please, that's one, and there are two more parts to it.
Well, I don't know the details of his business loans, so it may or may not go.
A business loan of permanent basis for his trading business.
So still, it doesn't create the full picture for me to answer this question. All the requisites for which should be there for me to answer that questions are not there.
A Muslim businessman who
I know the question.
yeah.
But just to say that somebody has business loans, it doesn't mean anything. He may have business loans and yet his business may flourish. He may be very well off. He may be possibly able to undertake so many journeys to Kaaba and backwards and beyond even. So, and there could be other people who are crushing under the load of these loans and who can't even make two ends meet. So how can I give the same answer applicable to both these situations? So from situation to situation, on the merit of the case, this question will be answered. So I hope all the remaining two parts are also answered in this.
Yes, but with the exception of last one.
Okay.
A person who has promised to build a mosque in the later time of his life,
That's right.
at the moment, could he go for performance of Hajj or Umrah?
What do you mean? I don't think this question requires an answer.
Thank you.